Good morning, everyone. Anthony Tharp. Um, Another insert. It's 10:50 a.m. Saturday, middle of the weekend, I guess, on the 15th of April, 2023. Just following up and giving you any updates I might have on commentary on the last videos and what's going on. So good morning. I hope your day is going great, and I hope you take time again to know who you are, check who you are and where you want to go with your life, the life of your family and your people around you. And my recommendation is that people who are around you who have no interest in making progress honestly, that's beneficial to you and your family, then you should pretty much change those relationships. In short, people who aren't going to be beneficial to your success, you need to cut them loose. And that's essentially what we probably need to do in Jamaica. Identify people who are holding us back from being progressive and developing our country, our economics and our nation, and just cut them loose. Replace them with people who are going to be doing what they said they're going to do. And we can no longer tolerate incompetence, mediocrity, and dishonesty. So, in short, corruption, which is my pet peeve. Because I still maintain that corruption is the main cause of everything that's going on in most societies, and the major problem that's going to destroy or has destroyed many major civilizations. And I don't think we should put ourselves in a position where we think we are exempt from those things that could happen. That's why people read the Bible. The Bible is a historical document, and whether some of it is conjecture, some people would imply, or just animation, the reality is, if you follow biblical stories or that's written there, it talks about past civilizations and past empires that are either no longer with us or collapse or wiped from the face of the earth. And even in the Bible you see where corruption reigns supreme. It was corruption that caused Christ to go to the cross. It was corruption, with the old taxation. It was corruption with the attempt to wipe Christ from the earth with the genocide of kids, babies, when they didn't know who he was, where he was, or to whom he was born. And so I think they had to take off to Egypt at one point to hide out. So again, I don't think our circumstances that we're experiencing today are any different. Things might look different. We might not have had cars back then in his era or his time, and we might have now, but in essence it's pretty much the same strategy, same things these people have been doing, the same corrupt activity. And our mission, I guess, on earth, I would imagine, is to try to fix that. Because in fixing it, we can advance ourselves and transcend to a higher plane of existence and intellect. Because then we realize we don't have to be out there exploiting people or ripping off people to survive. Governments shouldn't be there just to uphold an economy or build an economy or create circumstances within an economy that benefits only a few people. And this constant greed to an ego for some people to say they're on top of everybody else. Frankly, I don't understand it. I'm not going to try to understand it, because it's not a good thing. Nobody should think they should stand on other people's necks to elevate themselves and then feel all powerful. And because they really can't command the respect of people when they do that, they employ all kind of nefarious activity to keep people down. And I mean, we could list them. It happens all over the world. The US, Russia, the UK. Everybody have their secret societies and their organizations, and both government based or origin and private. So the reality is that we need to find a way to educate the masses so that we don't keep regenerating the same kind of attitude that's keeping us back. As I said, today is Saturday. It's a really nice day. I was walking. It's pretty hot, so I didn't complete my normal time out because it was so hot. But it's really, really nice today, and I wish everybody could be enjoying this. For me, I've been all over the US. I've been international and outside the US. I've been in the Caribbean, other Caribbean islands. I've been in Central America. And honestly, totally and completely honestly, Florida is one of the best states to live in. Really, I'm gonna miss it when it floods out if I'm still here. Cause ocean levels are rising, and we're walking around with our heads either above the clouds or buried in the sand, and ignoring it as civilized people who should be planning way ahead of what's happening. But they say Florida is not sinking, but oceans are rising. And in fact, just yesterday before yesterday, we had mass flooding. The airport, Fort Lauderdale Airport, was underwater. I mean, cars were buried. I don't know if it's the entire airport, but as usual, the news shows you the worst part of everything. So the fact that water was able to cover cars in Fort Lauderdale is an indication of things to come. And the last hurricane we had on the west coast, you saw what happened there. Boats floated above power lines and were dumped miles inland because ocean levels were rising. And so there is a fundamental change going on in planet Earth that physiologically that we have to be aware of, climatic changes and all of that, and how they say predominantly is as a result of our activities as humans. I agree with that substantially, with the destruction of the environment and carbon consumption, and it's things that we've been doing and knowing that it's causing damage, and we just ignore it pretty much because people are making money. And as will encourage you to read and do your research, is that these people are making money and destroying the earth, our earth, not theirs, our earth. All they're looking for is profit and celebrate their profits annually. And what happens to us later? I guess that's why they're trying to get to Mars, or going back to Mars or some other planet. But for now, before they even do that, shouldn't they try, or shouldn't we try to preserve the planet? We live here. Why are we destroying it? You see people getting cancers and all kind of diseases more often nowadays than in the past. Is it that we weren't detecting it, or is it that our food consumption with all the chemicals in there is destroying us? I beg to support the latter, because when you look at the fact that so many people, especially young people, are dying from cancer, it spells something. And when you look at what's in the food, our food, and we know it's in there. I was looking at some guys making rice the other day. I think it was on YouTube. Yeah, I think it was. And they were making rice. Maybe you could research it. I don't remember. But they were making rice, and if you ever see artificial rice, not real rice. They didn't grow the rice. They had some kind of, it looked like plastic looking stuff. They threw it in some really dirty black water liquid, spun it around, then threw some stuff on there, and when they were done, it looks exactly like rice. And they were in some bush place doing it too, so there wasn't even sanitary conditions. It wasn't even a nice looking factory where if they're going to kill you, at least it's clean. These guys are out in the bush in the worst of conditions making rice, and even if they don't get it to the world market, they're certainly killing off the local consumption. People are consuming it locally. But we've been notified that a lot of the rice that's out there now is filled with plastic and all of that. So that's no news. It's or rather it's stale news, as they would say. We've known for a long time that shredded cheese, well, I've known, I don't know if you've known this, but shredded cheese from major cheese manufacturers is mostly wood chips. Believe it or not, they flavor the wood chips and mix it with some cheese, I guess, a little bit of cheese, and sell it as shredded cheese. And FDA approves it. I'm always going to recommend that you do your research. Go to the FDA food site, the site, and research what is their permissible amount of supplements or fillers they put in cheese or shredded cheese. And you'll be surprised. At one time I heard it was as low as 10%, but now I hear it's way above that. So you're not getting dairy as you think you are. It's a lot of artificial fillers, and that must have some effect on our health, obviously, because for one thing, artificial fillers are going to have in chemicals. It's not that these wood chips that they're putting in it's all organic or natural. They must put stuff in there to soften it, all of that kind of stuff, so that when you get it, you really think you're eating cheese. And it's not just that, it's a whole bunch of other things, supplement and fillers. You'll see juices, not natural juice, and when you look there, it's 10% fruit juice or 20% fruit juice. The rest is all kind of chemicals, and we're feeding ourselves soda. Don't even mention soda. And a lot of us are now getting skeptical about the water. Even the water we're getting, is it water that's really purified, really clean, free of all kind of chemicals? Because in Florida, for example, in certain areas, in southern Florida and along the east coast and even central, where it was traditionally a lot of agriculture, you find cancer being pretty high in those areas. And when you look at what used to happen, is they used to use so much chemicals in growing food crops, and people didn't know all of that. But pineapple was grown heavily in Florida at one time. I think maybe in the 40s, 50s. Pineapple, you had sugar cane, you had oranges, citrus, you have vegetables, of course, and a whole lot of other stuff. And everybody used to use dangerous chemicals. Those chemicals are still in our drinking water, in the aquifer, and that's where we get most of our water. It's pumped. A significant number of homes in Florida get well water, use well water, and what that means that you're getting a whole bunch of chemicals, because this is the same well water that the chemicals that they use on the lawns and all of that seep down and go in that pumps back into your house. And a lot of people use that same water to cook or even bathe. So you're bathing with water that's filled with chemicals and all of that, and we walk around as if we don't know, and we don't insist that the government corrects those things. It's when masses of people are dying off, and typically it's black people or people of color. They like to say people of color to include all quote-unquote non-whites, and it's typically in their neighborhoods. In was it Ohio a couple months ago, where the water supply was so tainted for decades that so many people and their children are getting cancer and getting sick. They had to be drinking bottled water around the clock. And they knew. These people knew that they were doing that. So governments ignore things they should be doing to protect the population. And you know what's worse? The people, the population who the government should be serving, ignore it and don't take responsibility for their own well-being. And it's the same all over. Why am I going through all of that? To point out to everybody that's hearing me or viewing this video that a lot of what's going on in so-called third world countries that predominantly are occupied by so-called people of color, black people, so-called native people, that we don't take responsibility for our lives. We always rely on and become dependent on a few people, put themselves out there as having our interest at heart. And when you check the overall policy and programs that they have in play, it's in their interest. And we don't hold them accountable. And so the greatest contributor to our own demise is ourselves, because we don't want the responsibility of protecting ourselves. Even in terms of people who are investors or business or in business with other parties or persons, I learned personally that when you're working with other people who are partners with you in business, a lot of them don't care or want to even participate in any decision-making processes. They don't want to take any action to protect their own interest. And when things pop or go bad, then it's easy for them to blame everybody else. So I'm talking from experience, because, for example, I've always worked to set up my business, or I'm in real estate. So if I'm doing joint venture acquisition of property to resell, or I'm thinking of doing developments, designing and doing developments and then selling that before we actually do the work, getting the approvals and all of that, and we get partners. One thing I've always done, I've always said to them, I don't want anybody to come and say, well, I am the one that's doing this, I'm the one that's making all these bad decisions. So guess what? I make sure that we form a board, and all of them partners, a significant amount of them are put on the board. But beyond that, we have meetings on a regular basis with the other partners, update them, and said to them it's their responsibility to keep the board in line. It's their responsibility to make sure everything is going according to plan, and if plans have to be changed, they're well aware of the changes. They are well aware of the checks and balances we have in place or put in place, so that if anything goes wrong, nobody can say, well, we didn't know what was going on, and therefore you try to blame somebody else. And you know what I've discovered? You put people on boards, they don't want to come to board meetings, and when they come to board meetings and you assign them responsibilities and they have those responsibilities, they don't carry them out. And when they come and things start going bad, then they're trying to blame everybody else. That's the nature of people. And I'm talking about my people predominantly. There were occasions where when we needed the support of the partnership to persons that were putting us under pressure, especially when it comes to regulators. And we wanted regulators to know this wasn't a 1, 2, or 3-man operation. It represented multiple parties that would be damaged or hurt if we didn't have the plans passed or managed in a way that would give us our projected outcome. And you know what? In fact, the largest percentage of the partnership would even say on occasions, oh, that's your business, you have to take care of it. Seriously, even if they have money involved, it's your business, even if they have money involved. And so they sit on the sidelines, and then when things not working out or it's delayed, they start contacting you. Oh, we need our money, what's happening, it's been so long, it's so this. You're still fighting on their behalf and on your behalf, And when you reach out and say, listen, I need support, show up at this meeting, write letters, make calls, you have money invested here, you have an interest, they're silent. I don't know if people are scared to let other people know that they're involved in investments, and they're scared to let people know that they're willing to take risks to empower themselves. I don't know if they're embarrassed if business fail and they lose money legitimately, but the reality is they shouldn't be, because the vast majority of people who are billionaires and trillionaires and world leaders in terms of business, technology, science, all of them had failures. Not one of them came out and as they stepped on the scene, they were instantaneous success. They had failures, they had delays, a lot of them had to file bankruptcies because of part of their strategy. A lot of them had to go out and take, bailouts. A lot of them had to sometimes walk away. But they didn't just walk away and stop. They went back and re-engaged themselves with their plans and came back stronger and better because of the experience. Your experience tell you drop partners who aren't any good for you. That's why I started out by saying, if you're connecting with people who don't have your interests at heart or are positive and want to move forward and find every excuse not to move forward and find every excuse to not make progress or do something that's going to empower them or take risk, then you don't need those persons. But you need a people around you that will work with you to minimize the risk. Because the more people you have working together, and the more eyes you have on the ball, the more brains are there pointing out issues, the more people that can do research, and they have to be willing to participate. So I structure my joint venture agreements and any agreements, partnership, I structure it that all partners are responsible for the projects coming to fruition. So don't come in and say, well, you're not participating or you're not being held accountable or won't be held accountable if there's failure. So if 2 or 3 or the majority of people fall down on the job, it's up to you to make sure that this project is done. And why we do that? We don't want it to come out like the traditional investor, start bawling and begging, oh, I put my money with this person and I lost it because he didn't let us know what was happening. No, you're responsible too. So guess what? When the failure comes, and it was as a result of negligence on the part of the participants, the partners, the investors, then you're to be blamed as well. So this idea that it's the principal or the principal party that's going to take all the blame, I don't buy into it. And that's why I have partners sign that agreement, because when it comes down the pipeline and things go bad or go south, as they would say, they can run to some regulator who wants to big up themselves and then try to hold people accountable and liable and even criminal for failures that occur normally in business and investment. And that's why the other day, if you heard the President of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden, when the bank in Silicon Valley failed, or that bank that was heavily vested or invested with technology or people going into technology, when it failed the other day, what did he come out and say? The feds aren't going to bail out any investors, because when you invest, you stand the risk. That's a risk. You're taking a risk. And when that thing fails, then you can't be looking for taxpayers to bail you out and come crying as if you're the injured party all the time and that somebody else should be blamed because you wanted to participate in a business that, if it is successful and they make a ton of money, you're extremely happy and you're wealthy and you celebrate. But when there's failure and hard work to be done, you don't want to participate. You don't want to have any failure, but somebody else must subsidize you for failure. And then you go after people when the business fails. And I say fail legitimately. Because there's a difference between failing legitimately and one that's failed because of people's corruption and illicit activity. Not talking about those kind of businesses. And that's why I have a securities market. That's why I have the stock exchange. People do public offering or IPOs. You buy into the IPO because you read up and you take the risk. And IPOs are predominantly telling you there's a whole lot of risk involved in anything that you're investing in. And once you make that decision, don't run back to anybody. Go say, oh, well, somebody tricked you with this or tricked you with that. No, not when you're buying an IPO. Not when that IPO has been revised, checked, and then you have the responsibility of reading it and making sure you understand it before you purchase. And that's why in previous videos where I mentioned the whole thing with Valerie and King, the same one where the appeals court ruled that developers were no criminals because they didn't have a real estate dealer's license, which was not required. And we pointed out that Mrs. King had the agreement that the judge said she agreed with her that she was confused. Mrs. King had that agreement for almost 3 weeks. Supposedly reading it, she went to her attorneys, and I'm pretty sure she went to other people with it, and she came back. Her attorney told her there was nothing wrong with the agreement, didn't see anything that would be a problem in terms of her getting what was pledged in the agreement. And then she came back to court now with her lawyers to say, sorry, she was confused. So we're not buying into that poor excuse, because people like that are themselves scammers. And when you buy into an IPO, or you go into an investment partnership, or you go into anything that where you invest your money, you have to understand there is a possibility of loss. And if that loss does come, if they didn't give you a responsibility to be participants in what's going on, that's one thing. But in our case, where we give people the opportunity and the responsibility to be a part of it 100%, then you have no excuse. When we give you documents to read and to say you understand it before you sign it, or we're not going to allow you to enter the partnership, and then you come back when things go south at no fault of anybody, and you come back and you start trying to blame other people, then you're the scammer. You're the dishonest party. And that's why I say, everybody that's thinking about getting into a partnership, make sure you draft an agreement that says to the person coming and proposing that agreement or joining you in any business transaction, sign a separate agreement that I understand the risk I'm taking and putting in my money voluntarily, and when and if there is a failure of this business opportunity or business proposal, then I am not holding anybody liable. You have to start doing that. Just like if, and I'm mentioning this because I think one of the things we need to do is also, have everybody that's when you're going on a date, for example, draft an agreement. If you plan to go sleep together after, have an agreement drawn up. So that anything happens afterwards and one person is going to run and say, oh, it was force, or this was that, and all of that. You have an agreement in place, just like a prenuptial agreement. That's all it is. Because a lot of relationships end up where one party, for whatever reason, going and then say, I was abused. And in some cases, that's the truth. So if you have an agreement signed up that you're not going to engage in anything on this date or whatever, and anything does happen, then they can haul that bastard away, or the person who violated the agreement. But if the agreement says you don't know where this is going to, we might, then that's another story. And you might say, why am I saying this? Because it's similar to what I'm saying about business. Have people sign agreements so that when anything does happen, they can turn around and play the victim or an innocent party, when in truth and in fact they are 100% involved in all the risk, not just the leadership. And that's going back to Jamaica now, and going back to our people. so-called working people, middle class people, who cry foul when their investments don't work or they're not invested in anything, because most of us can't work a regular job and expect to build a long-term economy that's going to take us through retirement and allow us to live right through retirement without difficulty or inflation killing us or preventing us from living a quality lifestyle. Most of us won't get there unless we have things working for us, unless we have investments. And whether you're invested in real estate or you invested in stocks and bonds, that's your choice. But one has to make decisions that I'm going to put away a certain amount of money into an investment and watch that investment grow. Now, you might just decide, I don't want to be part and parcel of any mass investment portfolio or group of people investing. You just want to invest in stuff on your own. Go ahead. Acquire real estate. Have a farm on the side. Grow stuff on the side and market it. Do a separate activity than your regular job that's going to generate that residual extra income, and use that now to save and put away cash. And as I've said to you before, don't think your money is safe in the bank. I just mentioned the failure of the bank and the president of the United States, Joe Biden, saying not bailing you out if you're an investor in a bank, because their business is like everything else and they fail. So make sure you have money in disposable assets that you could dispose of or sell, but as you grow and get older, those assets are getting up in value. Now, a lot of people invest in art. Personally, if you have a lot of money, I think maybe that's one thing you could do. But the reality is, you want stuff that's going to be sold quickly if you have to liquidate. So you have to shop around, and there are all kind of stuff out there that's going to give you equity. But real estate is a good place to be, especially if you develop that real estate and have it into rental income, and the rental is more than sufficient to cover your expenses or your mortgage and pay you back your principal, and then give you residual income long term. Because at the end of the day, that's a tangible asset that's not going anywhere. And if it does go anywhere and get destroyed, hopefully you'll have insurance, which is another thing. But the bottom line is, people who are looking to build their economy, grow wealth and become wealthy, don't go around and blaming everybody else for your lack of success, because either you haven't participated in anything that's going to grow your economy, you're not participating in anything that's going to build residual income, and you're only relying on government to come up with plans to increase your salary over time, if you're working for government or the business you're working for. Because in reality, those two organizations, whether private or public or government based, typically can't keep up with inflation. They typically don't give you money or salaries that can keep up with inflation, which means you're always going to be behind and in debt. So again, be smart. You want to be successful? Find ways to get out there and stop being scared to invest. Don't just throw away all your money. Have some saved, obviously. Don't put everything in an investment. Don't fall for the pyramid schemes, or you hear rumors of people making a lot of money this week, and if you're going in a pyramid scheme somewhat, then you're going to get a lot of money. The people who end up at the bottom of the pyramid typically lose everything. And we talked about that before. So don't fall for that. There is plenty of information out there that you could read up on how people got into different investments and failed because of the things that took place. And you want to participate, you want to play a role, and don't ever be that irresponsible party that's going to say to the principal or the lead investor or the person who came up with the plan, the original plan, to say it's your business. Anything that comes up that needs to be resolved or solved, any kind of difficulty, it's on you. No. That person must have you there pushing to make sure everything is going in the right direction. If they need support, you must be there to give the support. And again, I'm talking from experience. I've had people who, when, for example, when the FSC came out and made accusations, which we sued them defamation, and we said to persons who were benefiting from the programs we're doing, they're not investors because we didn't have any investors participating in programs that we're doing. And we said to them, listen, we need you to give us support here and let them know that nobody tricked you anything. We're not doing securities. We didn't promise you anything. This is not an investment. You are a beneficiary of the byproducts or the products of the company. That's not investing. If you're benefiting from the products of the company, it's not buying stocks and bonds. And we weren't selling stocks and bonds. And we had several meetings and invited persons who were even making money from moving our products, and said to them, we need your support here. We're going to take these action. And I don't think one, in fact, we didn't have one. I think we have about 3 or 4 persons who stuck by us from the time we filed suit against these parties and the Observer to date. I think we can count them on one hand that's sticking there, and those are the people that I'm looking out for. In fact, before I started this campaign on YouTube, I reached out and told the registered agent, one of the joint venture partners, to say, send out a letter to everybody, an email, say, well, we've gotten tired of waiting on the courts, we've gotten tired of waiting on government, we're going forward with the project, but before we do that, we want to expose the fraud and the corruption, so that when people see our projects moving and we get our products to market, we'll have evidence on file, on video, on the internet, in the air, in the cloud, that people can refer to and follow the details and understand why is it that our project, my project, took so long to move forward, and that it wasn't our fault that government neglected to protect us, or they have people in the courts that they're not willing to clean out and put measures in place to remove corruption. Because whatever those people's reasons are, it's illegit. Nobody has the right to stop persons from making a living, investing and making money. That's a human rights violation, which we talked about before. But we put that, and I put that out there. We met with these people and we said to them, we need your support. So I had one of the partners, joint venture partner, not a real partner in the true sense of the word, joint venture partner in one of the developments, send out a letter or email to say, this is what we're doing, we need your participation, get back to us. And I even put in there, had him put in there, if you can't participate, then I'm only going to be looking out for the people who are with us, who are willing to invest some time and energy and get this thing done. And to date, the same 5 or 6 people who have been sticking with us through all of this struggle, with the corruption, all the struggle with the court, all the struggle with the government preventing cases from coming into court because they know they can't beat us. Because in most of the cases, they won the case already. Some of them are default. You know how many cases we had where default judgment is supposed to be entered and the courts won't do it? And again, a default judgment is simply the other side failed to do what they were supposed to do because they have no defense and they didn't respond, and under the rules of the court, automatically we're supposed to get the judgment. And we filed the necessary paper. We're still waiting, and I care how we write. In fact, up to Friday, I sent off an email to Mrs. Wellington, who is the registrar of the Supreme Court Civil Division, and I sent an email to her reminding, and this is a reminder of a reminder of a reminder email, saying, why is it that we can't get the final order on the default judgment for this matter, and why is it that the court is refraining from setting the assessment of damages on this matter, and we've been waiting for years? And that's the kind of corruption. But that's saying, if we had mass support from a lot of people pressuring these people and letting them know the world is watching, do you think we'd still be sitting here? They're figuring it's only a few of us. And therefore, if they keep the few of us at bay, rest of people don't care, they're not saying anything, they're not doing anything, then they figure they can hold us until the statutes of limitations on these things run. However, and I'm going to remind them that the statute of limitations will not run on any of these matters, because we've submitted all the applications we need to submit, and we are waiting on the court to make a date and setting. And until we get a day in court and an order is given, the statute of limitation would not start running. So this strategy that they're using now is to wait us out pretty much. And our wait time is extended because our joint venture partners, people who were going to be purchasing products, and those products would have been generating residual income for them, people we were going to hold mortgages for on the products we were doing, the condos that we're doing, at low interest rates, fixed interest rate, that would be benefiting because now they have long-term residual income. Not one of them people pick up the phone or write a letter and say to all of these regulators and government, listen, you're holding up my progress. Why is it that all of this corruption is going on? The evidence is there. Go online and see it. It's on YouTube. The evidence is there. And we can say that with confidence because every one of them government agencies that are relevant to us, we've sent the information to, which I pointed out in previous videos. So the reality is, going through this morning to say to Jamaicans and to Caribbean people and all people who are looking and working to empower themselves, accept the responsibility of being a part of whatever enterprise you say you want to be a part of to empower yourself financially. Accept the responsibility that you should play a role, whether oversight or participating in ensuring that everything falls into place. And when your investment comes under attack, be prepared to defend it. Because again, the investors or partners we have, joint venture partners, or the beneficiaries of these projects that we're doing, they're sitting and waiting and ignoring while government and the corruption that's going on, people in the courts that are corrupt, are stealing from them. Because every day they delay this thing, it's every day that the partners, the joint venture partners, the investors, the beneficiaries of the product don't make money. It's every day that they hold us up, that the island of Jamaica is suffering because revenue and income that would flow into the economy doesn't come in because we have these corrupt people down there. So don't think when you have investment or investors or people willing to invest in the country being held at bay deliberately by corrupt action, it's not affecting you. It's affecting everybody in the economy, especially since we were doing, or we have on the table, major projects. We're talking about 14 million square feet of condos, high-end condos, commercial space, you name it. And just imagine 14 million square feet, that's no small project. That was only one project. So instead of complaining and instead of us waiting on government to provide us with solutions, which we know they either don't have or they can't, or they don't have the intellect to come up with a strategy to do it, or they're scared themselves. As private persons and private individuals, we have the capability of achieving those things on our own. We don't have to wait on government to make laws that will put money in our pockets. We can initiate projects and developments and activity, business activity that puts money in our project, in our pockets, then pressure government to follow this path so we protect those income streams. We have to be in charge of government, not the other way around. For too long we've allowed ourselves to neglect or renege on our responsibility at directing the path of government and sitting and putting people in place who we assume are going to do a good job, and the vast majority of them who go in there don't even have a clue of what they're doing. And one of the first indicators that a lot of these people we're putting in place to go in and run our business don't know what they're doing is that a lot of them, when they go into or they win an election and they're appointed minister of X, minister of that, minister, they never had any experience in those areas. And if they even had experience, what kind of experience? You're going to pick up a doctor to head up the Ministry of Health. For what reason? Did this doctor have any business or management experience or training? No. So they have to go in there and learn on the job. And this is not some little patty shop this person is running or some one station clinic. You're talking about a nation with millions of people, and you pick up a person who have no management experience, no business experience, put them there to run an entire nation's health sector. So you know why the hospitals are failing. You know why we're not having more hospitals now as opposed to what we had 15, 20 years ago, because the persons that have been put in charge don't know how to grow business or don't know how to manage. Because if you're running a hospital, you have to run it like a business. If you're running the water commission, you have to run it like a business. If you're running any enterprise in government, you have to run it like a business. NEPA, all of them. And unless you have people who have management experience, then you can't just pick up people and throw in there. And one of the problems is that every time we have an election, we completely overhaul the ministries, literally. In fact, one person I spoke to at which one of those agencies are in charge of a lot of assets of the government property. Anyway, they built hotels that they turn over to Butch Stewart in St. Elizabeth, White House. So we had a meeting with the persons that were managing down there, and we were talking, and there was coming up a vacancy for the person at the head of that organization. And so the persons were there, they were like, no, they don't want it. They don't want to be the manager, because every time there's an election, they rip those people out and replace them. Now, if you have an infrastructure of management for a ministry, there is no need to rip out those people and replace them every time you have an election and a new government comes into play, because the people are there running the organization. Now, if they're not doing a good job, then that's a different business or matter. Saying this to say that A, we have to be responsible. B, don't just go around and blame people who are the principal of these investment opportunities that are created because the business fails. Business will fail and investments will fail. Are you prepared to take a risk when you're entering these things? And if you're prepared to become an investor, make sure part of the risk you're taking, you understand that every dime you're putting is every dime you can lose. So don't go now start blaming people when it's a legitimate issue. If you find somebody being a criminal and through corruption ripping off the money and all of that, then that's a time to call in the authorities to deal with it. Don't run up and down and start screaming that, oh, this is failing because of what this person. Let law enforcement deal with it. And the other thing now is that be responsible in that, making sure that if this person is failing, you can quickly put somebody in place to fix it, because you have a proper board of directors that you are completely in touch with, and have them sending out regular updates, setting up meetings on a regular basis, so you can clock exactly what's happening. Because that's the only way we're going to be able to do these developments and become sophisticated enough that we grow our economy and can put enough money in there that's beneficial to everybody, the entire country, and you, the investor. I want to thank people who have been subscribing and coming to the channel. I really appreciate it, because part of that whole strategy is of getting these videos out is to raise people's awareness so that we can expose what's going on, both on the side of the corruption and on the other side is to garner persons who understand the investment in real estate like we're doing, and if they see a need, they can participate once we get on the market. But they become knowledgeable of the tricks and all the trades and that's occurring in the business and in regulation, sorry, with regulators, and that they need to play a role in protecting themselves and the country's economy by not ignoring what's going on out there. So it's important. So please subscribe, have and invite other people to go to the channel and subscribe. But most importantly, share the information and go in the comment section and make your comments. I want to make this comment based on a comment I saw coming in on yesterday's video. And the comment basically is, please don't make your comments so technical or complicated where it's ambiguous. I didn't know how to respond to the comment that was made. I don't know the nature of the comment or where it was coming from, but if you can get back in there and clarify the comment so I could respond, because I don't want to leave comments that I can get to and not respond, because it's important. My goal is not to be out here just disseminating information, but to make sure that you understand fully where I'm coming from, that my objective is to be transparent and clear, that I have no ulterior motives, because in exposing my lifestyle and my life and my business activity, it's certainly not, I could not contribute to me doing anything underhanded or to trick people into doing anything. Because first and foremost, everything I'm doing is above board. That's why I'm able to put everything on the videos. I can direct you to the courts to where my documents are. I can direct you to Amazon, where my documents have been scanned in and placed in file in Amazon under the theme, the fence that broke the scammers back. I've kind of expressed who I am on Amazon in a book called For White Eyes Only. And I did that because I want people to understand who I am, where I'm coming from, my motivation. My motivation is not just about making money. God, I am blessed in that He has allowed me the wisdom and the insight and the foresight to identify factors within the global market or even the US market of how to make money. So I know how to make money from I was in high school. And I remember one of my classmates, when everybody was broke and I always had money, they don't see me doing anything. And he made comment to a group of friends of ours that was at the library. He said he knows if I want to be wealthy, I'm going to be rich, because he's never seen somebody who knows how to make money. And it's not boasting, but certain people have certain talents. However, in a global market and a global economy where things are rapidly changing, an individual is going to have it really difficult growing the economy or building wealth in a significant way if that person is only an individual working alone in an isolation. Can be done, but it's going to be difficult. It is even more difficult if that person is of color, a black person, because the global economic systems are structured to keep us out. And that's just a fact. That's why you find so few of us being wealthy. And when you find a lot of us who have money, how they make it? They're in the entertainment industry or sports. And they're not even getting half the money they're making for these other people. They're getting a fraction. So for us working together, and it's not just about people of color, I believe in working with all people, for the simple reason that the vast majority of us who are working our butts off to make it are honest, decent people, and color and race and creed doesn't matter. But part of the existing economic systems that operate around the globe, these persons who are in charge propagate the concept that certain people are inferior to others. And so when it comes to the color barrier, they say people have more melanin or of color, dark skin, are less intelligent. That's what they're projecting, which is nonsense. Then they put white people who are poor a trailer trash, and therefore they don't deserve to be wealthy. And they put all of us against each other. And we're so busy fighting each other and looking at each other and distracted with racist issues and racial prejudice that we forget that these people are there stealing from us in the meantime. So my objective is to empower as many people as I can. And in so doing, when we start leveling that playing field and people are wealthy and have money and living good, nobody has time to be out there discriminating against each other. We're going to be enjoying life, enjoying each other. Our cultures share what's good in each of our cultures and enjoy it. And that's what I think we need to transcend to a higher plane of existence, as opposed to existing in one where everything we hear about is race and color, when in truth and in fact that's not what we need to empower ourselves. This whole struggle with color is not what's going to build us. We have to take responsibility and take charge of our own destiny. This racist person who is pushing the racist agenda is not going to do it to help us. Governments who go in place who are supported by these racist people are not going to do anything to help us. They do some facade or some trivial stuff to say, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. But the truth of the fact is, we shouldn't have to be relying on government to do anything for us. Because again, when you have the money and your power, that's who directs government's activity. So again, thank you for listening. Please share, please subscribe. If you're commenting, whatever comments you have to make, good, bad, indifferent, make it as simple and as straightforward as possible. Simplicity brings understanding. And I want everybody to understand the comments that are being made, so that when I respond, they know where I'm coming from. And so we don't want to be caught up in any person trying to be slick with twisted language. I've already said to you, one of the problems we have with government and the laws and the court is that we have these quote-unquote intelligent people who go in there and they write laws in such a convoluted, ambiguous way with intentions to fool people and make it difficult for them to understand that these things are set up for them and not for a bunch of lawyers and judges, but for them, the people. But we've allowed the ambiguity and the nefarious arguments and documentations to be produced so that they can lock us out. So keep everything we do on this channel, please, simple. If you notice, I try not to use any complicated issues, and if it's even too complicated for me and I get tongue twisted, I move to something else. I don't want to be tongue tied and I don't want to be brain tied with trying to understand comments that are complicated. So please keep it simple. Help us to make a better world for everybody that's in there. So again, share. Thanks for taking the time. Talk to you tomorrow or earlier. And if you don't hear from me tomorrow, you talk to me. I'll talk to you the next day. But I'm here to educate persons as best I can, so that when opportunities are in front of you and those opportunities make sense, that you don't run away from them or back away from them because some corrupt person is scaring you about opportunities that are good or too good to be true, are not opportunities you should be looking into. Look at everything. Look at everything and don't let some foolish analogy or jargon stop you from making progress. If it sounds too good to be true, then it couldn't be true. Some nonsense like that. They'd put out those kind of arguments to mess with your head so you don't see opportunities and go for them. What you want to do is study those opportunities. Look at all the flaws. Look at all the militating factors and see if you're willing to take a risk with it. Check out the people who are leading those things and see if they're constantly out there ripping off people, or they just change the company's name and so to pull in other investors. Look at their relationship with government and see if they have any friends in government, because typically those are the people who commit crimes and get away with it. And again, start learning to fight for your rights in the courts by addressing the issues that you need to overcome or other people need to come as a nation. Don't ignore it. You never know when it's going to come to bite you in the ass. Thank you. Have a great one. Enjoy your weekend. And I say we talk tomorrow. Bye.